The bride slapped me at my son's wedding, and I knew right then I'd burn their world down, not with fire, with paper. But let me back up. My name is Graham Keene, though people mostly call me Gray. It fits. 64 years spent blending into the background, reading blueprints, catching the flaws that everyone else misses. 30 years as a city building inspector teaches you that structures lie, people lie worse, and the truth always lives in permit files and load calculations. But I've also learned how to blend in, to slip between the cracks unnoticed, like water finding the easiest way through a flawed foundation. The wedding was at the Harbor View Pavilion, a shiny new venue with glass walls, polished steel, and a dozen donor plaques etched with names of people who had probably never seen the inside of the place. My son Daniel married Amelia Boyd, a litigator with perfect teeth, a buttoned-up personality, and a campaign exploratory committee she'd started just before their engagement. It was all part of the package deal, the high society wedding with the glossy smiles, the vows written for Instagram, and the promises of a future built on power and polish. I wore my one good suit, the navy one that still smelled faintly of electrical tape and drywall dust. I'd bought it years ago, long before the wedding was even a glimmer in Daniel's eye. The ceremony was nice, I guess. Daniel cried. Amelia glowed. 200 people clapped. But I couldn't quite shake the feeling that everything was being orchestrated. Every word, every gesture, every glance, carefully positioned like a piece on a chessboard. I was a piece too, though a quiet, invisible one, in the back row. Daniel's late mother would have been sitting beside me. Lung cancer had taken her 18 months ago. That morning, I had planned to listen to the final blessing she recorded for this day. Father O'Rourke, the chaplain who had sat with her during her hospice care, had recorded it for me, a final memory of her voice, of her words. I had it saved on my phone, but I didn't play it, not yet. It didn't feel right in the moment. Maybe later. The ceremony went off without a hitch. Daniel couldn't keep it together when they exchanged vows. Amelia wiped away a tear, her perfectly painted face never faltering. It was the kind of moment that looked beautiful, but it didn't feel like something real. Then came the reception. I was nursing a club soda, watching the harbor lights flicker through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The water was dark and endless, the lights on the docks twinkling like stars. There was something soothing about the view. I could almost forget I wasn't part of the life everyone else was living, that I was an outsider, an inconvenience even. Then Amelia took the microphone. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" Her voice cut through the soft hum of the crowd. It was polished, rehearsed. She smiled like a campaign poster, her teeth gleaming in the warm light. "I want to thank you all for celebrating with us, and I want to address something important." I could feel my stomach drop. My gut clenched. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew it wouldn't be good. "Daniel and I have been discussing family logistics," she continued. I watched her eyes flicker toward me. The spotlight followed. "Gray, we know you're living alone in that apartment. 3 flights, no elevator. We worry about you." The room fell silent. 200 pairs of eyes turned toward me. It was suffocating. My breath caught in my chest. "We'd like you to move in with us, a fresh start," she said, her voice sweet but sharp. "But first..." She began walking toward me, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. I could feel every step she took like a drumbeat in my chest. "We'll need your apartment keys. For safety inspections, getting movers scheduled, all of that." I set my glass down, carefully, like I was bracing for impact. "That's thoughtful," I said. "The answer's no." Her smile tightened, her eyes narrowing just a little. "Dad, be reasonable." "I am," I said, my voice even. "It's my home. Gray, you're 64. What if you fall?" Her voice had a sing-song quality, as if she was trying to sweet-talk me into something. "I'll get up," I said. Laughter rippled through the crowd, nervous laughter. I could see the looks being exchanged, the discomfort, the worry that I wouldn't play along. I wasn't a prop in their story. But Amelia wasn't done. Her face hardened, and she stepped closer to me, leaning down so her voice would carry. The microphone still in her hand. It amplified every word. "Give me the keys now." The room was silent again. All those people, watching. I could feel their eyes, their judgment. "No," I said, my voice steady. The silence stretched, then she slapped me. It wasn't theatrical. It wasn't a dramatic gesture for attention. No, this was a real slap. Open palm, hard enough that my glasses went crooked on my face. The shock of it made me freeze for a moment. The room gasped. Someone dropped a glass. I straightened my frames, my fingers trembling just a little as I adjusted them. "You done?" The room held its breath. Amelia's face flushed bright red, her eyes wide with rage. She shoved the microphone at the DJ, almost knocking over the equipment, and stalked off toward the far side of the room. Daniel stood frozen by the cake table, mouth open, eyes wide. He looked like a man caught between two worlds, his wife's world and the one I had tried to protect for him. I pulled out my phone, my hands working without thought. One call. "Father O'Rourke," I said, my voice low. "It's Gray Keene. I need you at the Harbor View Pavilion. Now! Bring the projector." 20 minutes. That's all it took. The DJ had started up again, some top 40 nonsense blaring through the speakers. Guests whispered to each other, glancing at me, avoiding eye contact. Daniel and Amelia huddled with her parents in a corner, their conversation hushed, tense. My daughter Leah, Daniel's sister, stood nearby with her husband Trevor. They both watched me like I was some sort of structural defect in the room, a fault line that was about to break apart the foundation they were all trying to build. Then the hall doors opened. Father O'Rourke walked in. He was in his mid-70s now, his white collar as crisp as ever, the wire-rimmed glasses perched on the bridge of his nose, his eyes kind behind the lenses. He carried a small projector under one arm. The whispers stopped as soon as they saw him. Some people recognized him. Not everyone, but enough. The hospice chaplain who had sat with my wife during her final days, who'd prayed with her when words failed me, who'd held her hand through it all. He walked straight toward me, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the tension in the room. "Gray," he said, his voice gentle, offering me a comforting presence. "Father." "Thank you," I said, my throat tight. He set up the projector on the gift table, aiming it at the white wall behind the cake. The DJ cut the music, the room holding its breath, waiting. Father O'Rourke pressed play. My wife's face filled the wall. She looked thin, tired, but still smiling. It was a recording made 3 weeks before she died. "Daniel. Amelia." Her voice cracked with the effort. "I'm so happy for you both. I wish I could be there. But I know your father will represent us well." The tears came immediately. I heard them, the gasps, the sniffles, as the weight of what they were hearing sank in. "I want to ask you something. Your father and I worked 30 years for that apartment. It's small, but it's his. It's home. Promise me—" She coughed, recovering. "Promise me you'll never pressure him to leave. He gets to choose, when he's ready, not before." She looked directly at the camera, at us, at them. "Protect him. He protected us." The screen went black. The room shattered. Amelia stood there, pale and rigid, her hands clenched by her sides. Daniel, his face hidden in his hands, was crumpling, the weight of the moment finally breaking through. I walked over to Father O'Rourke, shaking his hand with quiet gratitude. "I'll be in touch." Then I left. I didn't run. I didn't storm out. I walked, steady and deliberate, through the crowd that parted before me, like I was contaminated. Outside, the October wind off the harbor bit through my suit jacket. It cut through the fabric, but it was refreshing, a sharp contrast to the suffocating warmth of the ballroom. I stood there on the pavilion steps, looking out over the water, the quiet sound of the waves hitting the shore beneath the city's hum. I made a decision right then. They wanted my home, my dignity, my compliance. I'd give them a lesson instead. I didn't sleep that night. Not much, anyway. My apartment sits 3 floors up in a converted factory building on the edge of Southie. Brick, iron window frames, floors that creak in E-flat. I've lived here 22 years. I know every pipe, every breaker, every load-bearing wall. I made coffee at 4 a.m. and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a yellow legal pad. First rule of inspection work: paper doesn't lie. People do. Buildings do. But permit files, tax records, campaign finance disclosures, those tell the truth if you know how to read them. I started with Amelia. She'd launched an exploratory committee for a city council run, minor local race, but a launching pad. Politicians need money, endorsements, clean records. I pulled her campaign filings from the state database, public record. Took 10 minutes. Her treasurer, Trevor Pierce, my daughter's husband. Interesting. I dug deeper. Donor list. 50 names, mostly small contributions, but 3 stood out. Real estate LLCs. I cross-referenced them with property records, all 3 tied to Trevor's development projects. He ran a boutique firm called Pierce Urban Ventures, specialized in adaptive reuse, old warehouses into condos, that sort of thing. His current project, a micro-hotel near the seaport, 80 rooms, trendy, targeting tech workers. I pulled the building permits. The hotel needed a zoning variance for height. The variance approval hinged on ADA compliance, specifically 2 means of egress per floor, clearly marked, unobstructed. I zoomed in on the uploaded site plans. Something looked off. The second-floor mezzanine showed only 1 stairwell. The second exit was marked, under review. I grabbed my coat. The hotel site was a 15-minute walk. I took my camera, a small digital Nikon I'd used for documentation work. The building stood half-finished, wrapped in construction fencing and mesh. A sign read, Pierce Urban Ventures, with a projected completion date 2 months out. I walked the perimeter. The main entrance was locked, but the service door had a busted hasp. Contractors get lazy. Inside, dust, drywall, the smell of joint compound. I climbed to the second floor. The mezzanine was framed but not finished. I counted the exits, 1 stairwell. The second exit was a window, not code, not even close. I photographed everything, wide shots, close-ups, the permit placard posted by the door. Then I checked the sprinkler system. Half the heads were bagged in plastic. Painters do that to avoid overspray, but you're supposed to remove the bags immediately. These had been up for weeks, judging by the dust. I took more photos. Then I left. Back home, I uploaded the images and cross-referenced them with the approved site plans. Clear discrepancies. Enough to trigger a stop work order if the right person filed a complaint. But I wasn't ready to pull that trigger yet. I needed more. I called Maya Tran at 8 a.m. She's a reporter for the Metro desk, covers City Hall and development. I'd given her a tip 5 years ago, a new apartment tower with illegal egress stairs. She'd written a series that got the developer fined and the building fixed. She owed me. Gray, it's been a while. I need a favor. Always do. What is it? Background check. Amelia Boyd. Litigation history. Specifically any complaints filed against her. Pause. This personal? Does it matter? If you're asking me to dig into your daughter-in-law, yeah, it matters. She slapped me at my son's wedding, in front of 200 people. Another pause. Jesus. Okay, give me 2 days. 1. Gray. 1 day, Maya. I'll make it worth your time. Fine. 1 day. I hung up and turned to my daughter. Leah worked as COO for a tech startup downtown. Cloud analytics, something like that. I'd done some temp consultant work for them last year. Basic facilities oversight, contractor vetting. Then I got pushed out, politely. Downsizing advisory roles, they said. I pulled up my old company email. I'd kept the login credentials. Bad IT policy on their part. I logged in, still active, sloppy. I searched my name in the internal message system. 43 results. Most were routine, but one thread caught my eye. Leah to HR. Graham Keen's contract isn't delivering value. Let's transition him out quietly. HR to Leah. Any documentation of performance issues? Leah. No formal write-ups, just legacy thinking. He's my father. Makes it awkward. HR. Understood. We'll handle it delicately. I took screenshots. Then I dug into Leah's sent folder. Took a while, but I found it. A Google form she'd created. Anonymous poll titled Advisory Board Effectiveness. The questions were loaded. Do you feel senior consultants add strategic value? Should we prioritize younger perspectives? I traced the form link to her personal Google account. Not anonymous at all. More screenshots. By noon, I had a file. Amelia's campaign finances tied to Trevor's projects. Trevor's hotel riddled with code violations. Leah's paper trail showing she'd orchestrated my ouster. And Daniel? I pulled his hospital records. Not patient files. I'm not a criminal. But his public profile on the hospital website listed him as co-director of a new private surgical clinic, venture-funded, scheduled to open in 6 months. I called an old union buddy, Eddie Zizzo. He ran a moving company and still had connections with the Teamsters. Eddie, I need a favor. Gray, long time. What's up? You still friendly with people at City Hospital? My nephew works in their loading docks. Why? I need to know if there's any talk about Dr. Daniel Keen. Malpractice suits, complaints, anything. Your son? Yeah. Eddie whistled. This about the wedding? Word travels. Whole union's talking about it. That video's everywhere. I blinked. What video? The slap. Someone posted it. You didn't know? I hung up and opened Twitter. There it was. 18,000 views. The angle was from a guest's phone. Clear audio. Amelia demanding the keys. Me refusing. The slap. Comments ranged from supportive to vicious. Most sided with me. Some called Amelia a gold-digging psycho. Others speculated about elder abuse. I closed the app. I don't do social media. But I understood leverage. By evening, Maya called back. You sitting down? Talk. Amelia Boyd defended a hospital in a malpractice case 4 years ago. Patient died during surgery, family sued. Case settled quietly, but there was a complaint filed against Amelia by opposing counsel. Alleged witness tampering. Tampering how? She coached a hospital employee to change testimony. Employee later recanted, said Amelia told him what to say. Complaint got buried because the case settled, and the employee refused to testify further. Who was the employee? Nurse. Names blacked out in the public file, but I found a reference in a follow-up motion. Guy worked in the surgical wing. Same wing where, get this, Daniel Keen was a resident at the time. I leaned back. Amelia protected the hospital. And Daniel. Looks like it. Complaints still on file with the state bar, but it never went anywhere. No formal hearing. She's clean, technically. But it's there. It's there. Can you send me everything? Gray, this is walking a line. I'm not asking you to publish, just send me what's public record. She sighed. Fine, but if this goes sideways, I don't know you. Deal. I hung up and stared at my notes. They weren't just greedy. They were fragile. Amelia's political ambitions relied on a clean image. Trevor's hotel was financed on razor-thin margins. Leah's career depended on optics. Daniel's clinic needed investor confidence. I didn't need to destroy them with one blow. I needed to pull threads until the whole structure collapsed. Trevor was sloppy. That much was obvious from the moment I set up my stakeout across the street from his hotel. I had a hunch, but seeing him in person, the way he carried himself, the way his eyes darted nervously even when he wasn't in a hurry, confirmed it. He had been sloppy before, and judging by the intensity with which he shuffled around that morning, he was making the same mistakes again. It was 7:30 when the Mercedes SUV pulled up in front of the site. He didn't make any effort to hide his arrival, the hum of the engine loud against the otherwise quiet morning. The gravel crunched under the tires, breaking the stillness of the desert-like parking lot. Trevor slid out of the driver's side, wearing an oversized jacket that looked too warm for the early autumn heat. He didn't care. That much was clear. He met with the contractor, some middle-aged guy in a high-vis vest who carried himself like someone who wasn't used to dealing with people in Trevor's circle. They exchanged pleasantries, but I could tell it wasn't the kind of conversation that involved small talk. There was something measured about it. The contractor handed over an envelope, thick with cash, that Trevor slipped into his jacket without hesitation, without even glancing inside to check the amount. Off books. That was the kind of mistake that could cost Trevor everything if anyone got a look at it. I took the shot. Camera steady, lens long. I captured the moment from across the street. Not just one shot, but a few. Just in case the first didn't turn out. I'd been burned before by not getting the angle right. You never knew who might be looking. Then, as the contractor left, I followed Trevor into the building. The place was a wreck. A construction zone, sure, but it looked like someone had tossed a bomb inside. Sawdust everywhere. Piles of raw lumber stacked in a corner. Plastic sheeting tacked up over doorways and windows. It was a mess, but there was something about it that made sense. It was the kind of place where you could hide things. A few broken pieces of equipment, a couple of off-plan decisions, things that wouldn't be noticed by anyone who wasn't paying attention. The second I walked in, I felt like I was in someone's living room, but a living room filled with half-finished work and dust. I stuck to the walls, moving slowly, trying to be as invisible as possible. Upstairs, voices rose, muffled through the thin plywood. I climbed the temporary stairs, the wood creaking under my weight, careful not to make too much noise. I made it to the mezzanine, just in time to hear Trevor talking to another man. This one was older, graying hair, hard lines across his face like someone who had lived a few decades in this world of real estate and construction. "Second egress was approved," Trevor's voice came through, frustrated, low. "It's pending," the older man said. His voice was gruff but calm. "Variances take time, you know that." "We open in 8 weeks," Trevor snapped back, his voice rising now. "I can't afford a delay." "Then you better hope it clears." "Or what?" the man asked, a trace of sarcasm in his tone. "The fire marshal shuts you down?" I could feel the tension building, the standoff in their voices. Both men were playing a game, but I couldn't tell who had the upper hand. It didn't take long for it to play out. Trevor's jaw tightened, his hands balled into fists at his sides. "Fix it." "I can't fix the city, Trevor," the man said, his voice steady but tired. He wasn't scared, but I saw Trevor's eyes darken. He grabbed the plans the man was holding and shoved them away. The older guy left, his footsteps echoing on the stairs. Trevor was alone now, just standing there with the plans. The mess of sawdust and tools scattered across the floor looked less like a construction site and more like a reflection of Trevor's mind. Disorganized. Chaotic. I stepped into the light. "Those plans current?" I asked, my voice calm, measured. Trevor whipped around, startled. "Who the hell? Gray?" I nodded, not in the mood to play games. "Surprised?" I asked, the words coming out almost too easily. I could feel the control slipping out of my hands. He was a wild card, unpredictable. "You can't be here," Trevor snapped. "This is a construction site." I folded my arms, leaning against a support beam. "I'm a building inspector. Was anyway. This is where I belong." I watched Trevor's face twist with irritation, his eyes flickering nervously. He wasn't used to being challenged, not like this. He rolled up the plans quickly and stuffed them into his jacket, the move jerky and panicked. "Get out!" I stayed rooted to the spot. Not yet, I said, walking a little closer, trying to let my words settle in. Those plans you're holding, the variance you're waiting on, it's contingent on proper egress compliance. Right now, you've got one stairwell and a window. That's not code. You know it. The city knows it. You're just hoping no one checks before you open. His face flushed, his hands shaking as he shook his head. You don't know what you're talking about. I exhaled, shaking my head. I've been doing this for 30 years. I know exactly what I'm talking about. The red in his face deepened. You're harassing me. I raised an eyebrow. I'm observing. Public site. No trespassing signs posted. I walked in through an unlocked door. Don't get it twisted, Trevor. I'm within my rights. His voice was getting louder now, his steps closer to the edge. Get out! I leaned forward, the words coming out colder now. Give me the plans. Trevor blinked at me as if I were speaking a foreign language. What? The mezzanine plans, the real ones. Not the sanitized version you filed with the city. He let out a bitter laugh. You're insane. I closed the distance, stepping into his space. Your hotel's financed on investor cash, Trevor. If the city issues a stop work order, you miss your opening. You miss your opening, investors pull out. You're leveraged to your teeth. One delay, one setback, and you're bankrupt. I saw the flicker of panic cross his face, the realization sinking in. He was cornered, and he knew it. He glared at me, his voice low and venomous. You threatening me? I shook my head, feeling a calmness settle over me, like I was watching everything unfold from a distance. No, I'm offering clarity. Before he could react, I moved. He shoved past me toward the stairs. The moment he turned his back, I was right behind him. Walk away, Gray, Trevor said, his voice a harsh whisper over his shoulder. Can't do that, I replied. Trevor's feet were fast, his desperation clear. He sprinted for the side exit, the one that led to the garage next door. I kept my pace steady, not pushing too hard, but I wasn't letting him out of my sight. The garage was cold and dim. The echo of our footsteps reverberated off the concrete. Trevor reached the stairwell and yanked the door open, but I was right there, my hand slamming against it just before it could close. He took the stairs 2 at a time. I followed behind, my knee screaming in protest with each step, the old injury from the fall a decade ago flaring up. It didn't matter. I ignored it. The second level. The third. Trevor slowed as we reached the 4th. He wasn't built for this. I pushed forward, closing the gap between us, the tension building in my chest. My heart pounded in my ears. He turned around suddenly, his back pressed against the edge of the ramp, eyes wide with panic. Stay back. Give me the plans, I said. He looked at me like I was the one with a gun pressed to his head. You're crazy. No, I said, voice calm, unwavering. I'm methodical. I grabbed a painter's pole leaning against a column nearby, extending it toward him. With a quick, practiced movement, I hooked the rolled-up plans from his hand and yanked them away from him. Trevor stumbled forward, throwing himself off balance. I sidestepped, using the pole to sweep his legs out from under him. He hit the concrete with a thud, the plans skittering away. I reached down, snatching them up, unrolling them with deliberate care. There it was, the mezzanine layout, one stairwell, the second exit, marked future installation. A lie, a promise never meant to be kept. I stood over him, watching as he struggled to get back on his feet, breathing heavily, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You just assaulted me. I shrugged, stepping back. You tripped. Trevor's eyes were wild, frantic. There are cameras. Good, I said, turning to walk away. Let them show you running. I walked. I took a few steps toward the stairs, Trevor's ragged breathing echoing behind me. When I reached the bottom, I pulled out my phone and sent the first photo to Maya. A clear shot of the plans, of everything Trevor had been hiding. Then, I sent a second one, a side-by-side, the mezzanine layout, and Amelia's campaign donor list. 3 names highlighted in bright red. 3 LLCs tied to Trevor's projects. Amelia's reply came in 30 seconds flat. "We need to talk." I didn't even hesitate before responding. "No, you need to listen." I turned off my phone. And I went home. Amelia called the next day. I didn't answer. Daniel called an hour later. I let it ring. Leah texted, "Dad, what are you doing?" I replied, "Balancing a ledger." That night, Daniel showed up at my apartment. I buzzed him in. He climbed the 3 flights, knocked. I opened the door. "You alone?" "Yeah." I let him in. He stood in the kitchen, looking around like he'd never seen the place before. Maybe he hadn't, not really. He'd been busy. Residency, fellowship, private practice. Life. "Dad, this has to stop." I poured 2 glasses of water, handed him one. "What has to stop?" "This revenge thing. The photos. The threats. I haven't threatened anyone. You stole Trevor's plans. He dropped them. You're harassing Amelia. She slapped me." He set down the glass. "That was wrong. She knows it. She's sorry." "She told you to say that?" His silence was answer enough. I sat at the table. "Sit." He didn't move. "Sit, Daniel." He sat. I leaned forward. "You remember when you were 12? You wanted to quit piano? Said it was boring. I told you to stick with it 1 more year. You did. By 13, you loved it. You still play?" "Sometimes." "Why'd you marry her?" He blinked. "What?" "Amelia. Why her?" "I love her." "Do you?" His face tightened. "You don't get to question that." "I'm not questioning your feelings. I'm questioning your judgment. You don't know her." "I know she's running for office on Trevor's money. I know Trevor's building code violations could sink her campaign. I know she coached a witness in a malpractice case 4 years ago, and I know you were a resident in that same wing when it happened." He stood. "You're crossing a line. You crossed it first. We were trying to help. By taking my home. By giving you options. I don't need options. I need respect." He paced to the window, looked out at the street. "The clinic's in trouble." I waited. Investors are nervous. Some bad press about surgical outcomes at a competitor clinic. They're reevaluating commitments. And? If we don't open on time, we lose funding. I lose everything I've built. That's not my problem. He turned. "It is, if you torpedo Amelia. Her campaign's tied to Trevor's projects. If he goes down, she goes down. If she goes down, I go down. It's all connected." "Then you should have thought about that before she slapped me." His eyes glistened. "I'm sorry, for all of it. For not standing up for you at the wedding. For letting Leah push you out of her company. For not calling more. I'm sorry." I stood, walked to him, put a hand on his shoulder. "I believe you." He exhaled. "But it doesn't change anything." He pulled away. "Then what do you want?" "I want you to walk away from her." "I can't." "You can. She's my wife. She's a liability." He shook his head. "I'm not doing this." "Then neither am I." He left. I sat alone in the dark. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text. Pier 7. Midnight. Come alone. I knew the pier. Old industrial wharf, mostly abandoned. Fishermen used it sometimes. Drug dealers, too. I grabbed my jacket and walked. The night was cold, wind off the harbor sharp enough to sting. I reached the pier at 11:50. Sodium lights cast everything in sick orange. Daniel stood at the end, hands in his pockets, staring at the water. I walked out. Planks creaked under my feet. "You came," he said. "You asked." I didn't know where else to go. I stood beside him. Waves slapped the pilings below. A gull cried somewhere in the dark. "There's something I didn't tell you," he said, "about the malpractice case." I waited. The patient who died, it wasn't my fault. I wasn't even in the OR. But the family's lawyer tried to implicate me. Said I'd consulted on the case, made a wrong call. It wasn't true. and Amelia fixed it. She made the complaint go away, got the nurse to change his testimony. He was going to say I'd made an error. She convinced him otherwise. So you owed her. I owed her everything. I turned to him. That's how she controls you. He looked at me. She saved my career. She saved herself. You were collateral. You don't understand. I understand leverage. He laughed bitterly. Of course you do. What did she really want? The apartment? Money. She's broke. The campaign drained her. Trevor's projects are underwater. She thought if we sold your place, split the proceeds, you'd fund her campaign. Something like that. And you agreed? I didn't have a choice. I shoved him. Not hard, just enough to knock him off balance. He stumbled backward, foot slipping on the wet planks. He went over the edge. I grabbed his jacket, hauled him back. He landed on his knees, gasping. What the hell? You always have a choice. He looked up at me. I could have died. But you didn't, because I saved you. He stood, shaking. You're insane. No, I'm calibrated. I turned and walked back toward the street. He called after me. Dad, wait. I stopped. What do I do? I looked back. You tell me the truth. All of it. He swallowed. The complaint, the one Amelia buried. Yeah? It wasn't about me, it was about her. I walked back. Explain. The nurse didn't just change his testimony, he lied. Amelia told him what to say. She fabricated a timeline to protect the hospital and a donor. Big donor. Hospital board member. She tampered with the deposition. If anyone finds out, she's disbarred. And you know this how? She told me, after we got engaged, said we'd protect each other. She weaponized your fear. Yeah. And you let her. He nodded. I pulled out my phone. Say it again. What? Say it again, on record. He hesitated. Daniel, say it. He looked at me, then at the phone, and he talked. I didn't sleep. Again. The minutes dragged on, the night slipping past me without the relief of rest. I sat at the kitchen table, playing Daniel's confession on loop. His voice, shaky but clear, laid out Amelia's witness tampering, the donor she protected, the timeline she fabricated. The words hung in the air like smoke, suffocating and persistent. It was enough. More than enough. But I wasn't ready to use it yet. I called Ruth Delgado at 8 a.m. Ruth's worked the city clerk's office for 30 years. She knows every filing, every form, every loophole, every obscure ordinance buried deep within the bureaucracy. I'd bought her coffee once a month for a decade when I was still working. She liked me because I never asked for favors, never pressed her for inside information, never tried to grease the wheels. I did things by the book. Until now. Gray. What's up? Ruth answered, her voice thick with sleep. I need a sworn statement on filing dates. For what? She asked, her tone already shifting to one of concern. Trevor Pierce, building permits for the Seaport Micro Hotel. Why? She asked again, slower this time. You planning on making more trouble for him? Because he filed amended plans after the variance approval. I think he did it to hide an egress problem. I could hear her breathing through the phone. That's fraud, she said flatly. You sure about this? That's why I need the dates. There was a long pause. Ruth knew this wasn't a simple case of bureaucratic oversight. This personal? He married my daughter. Jesus, okay, give me 2 days. Ruth, I know, 1 day. I hung up, a grim satisfaction settling in my chest. Ruth was good. She'd have it for me by the end of the day. I called Eddie Zizzo next. Eddie, you still run those moving trucks? 20 years. Why? He responded, his voice gruff but familiar. Eddie and I had known each other for years. His business was straightforward, no nonsense. We'd worked together on a few minor construction projects back in the day, long before this mess started. I need a decoy delivery, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp, at the Seaport Hotel site. What's the decoy for? Eddie asked, his voice tinged with curiosity. It'll pull Trevor and his crew out of the building. I need 30 minutes inside. Gray, you're scaring me, he said, his tone shifting from business to concern. You'll get paid, I assured him. I'm not worried about money. I'm worried about you. Don't be. He sighed, and there was a long pause. Fine, 8 a.m. But I'm coming with you. Deal. I hung up and began mapping out the plan. Tomorrow, Eddie's truck would show up at the seaport site. Trevor's crew would think it was a delivery. They'd come out to check on it, distracted and confused. While they were preoccupied, I'd slip in through the side entrance, photograph the sprinkler system, inspect the second-floor egress one more time, and make sure the building's fatal flaws were still in place. And I'd leave a copy of the original filed plans on Trevor's makeshift desk, just to let him know I could. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, I had another problem. Maya called at 6 p.m. Gray, I got something, she said, her voice sharp with urgency. Talk, I said, leaning back in my chair, already knowing where this was going. Amelia's campaign finance report just dropped. She's in the red, deep red, $60,000 in debt. How? I demanded, leaning forward. I thought her donors were well funded. Consultant fees, advertising, event space. She went big early, expecting donations to roll in. They didn't. So she's desperate. Beyond desperate. If she doesn't close the gap, she's out of the race. And if Trevor's hotel gets shut down, she loses her biggest donor base, the LLCs tied to his projects. They're all contingent on his success. I smiled. A cold, calculating smile. Perfect. Gray, what are you doing? Maya's voice faltered slightly. Evening the odds. I hung up and opened my laptop. Amelia's campaign website had a donation page, bright and polished like the rest of her public persona. I clicked through, not for the donations, but for the event information. Her next big fundraiser was listed, a donor gala at the Harborview Pavilion. Same venue as the wedding. 1 week out, 200 guests expected, keynote speech, silent auction, the works. I pulled up the venue's public inspection records, starting with fire safety systems, occupancy limits, event permits. Then, I pulled up the city's fire marshal schedule, sprinkler tests, required quarterly. The Harborview was due for one. I called the fire marshal's office, my voice steady. This is Graham Keene, former building inspector. I'd like to schedule a sprinkler test for the Harborview Pavilion. When? The clerk asked, her tone skeptical. Next Thursday, 8 p.m. That's unusual. Normally we do these during off hours. It's a high-traffic venue, I replied. I think a live test during an event would be useful. Stress test the system. Pause. Who's requesting this? Anonymous complaint. Occupancy concerns. We'll look into it. I'll send documentation. I hung up and smiled to myself. A sprinkler test during the gala. Legal, documented, unavoidable, and humiliating. The next morning, Eddie's truck rolled up to the hotel site at 7:58. I waited across the street, camera in hand, watching the action unfold. Trevor appeared like clockwork, stepping out at 8 on the dot, flanked by 2 workers. They approached the truck. Eddie, clipboard in hand, stepped out and greeted them. Delivery for Pierce Urban Ventures, Eddie said, sounding casual. Trevor frowned, clearly caught off guard. We're not expecting anything. Says here you are. Let me see that. Trevor took the clipboard and squinted at it, his face contorting in confusion. I slipped across the street, moving fast, quiet. The side door was just ahead. I pushed it open, climbed the stairs to the mezzanine, and set my timer. 30 minutes. I moved quickly, methodically. I photographed the sprinkler heads, still bagged. The egress window, still just a window. The load-bearing columns, 2 of them undersized, a detail I hadn't caught before. I made sure to get every flaw, every imperfection. Then, as a final message, I placed the original filed plans on Trevor's desk, weighted them down with a brick. On top, I left a note. One call to the fire marshal, that's all it takes. I was back outside in 24 minutes. Eddie was still arguing with Trevor, and I texted him, "Wrap it up." Eddie shrugged, looking mildly amused. My mistake, wrong address. He climbed into the truck and drove off. Trevor stood in the lot, staring at the clipboard, clearly unsure of what had just happened. Then he looked up and saw me across the street. His face went white. I waved. Then I walked away. Ruth called that afternoon. "I got your statement, notarized. Trevor filed amended plans 3 days after the variance approval, changed the egress layout, filed it as a minor revision. It's not minor." Her voice was as steady as ever. "You can use it whenever." "Can you send me the statement?" I asked, already knowing what I had to do. "Already emailed it." "You're a saint." "I'm a clerk. There's a difference." I hung up and opened the email. One PDF, sworn statement, Ruth's signature, city seal. I forwarded it to Maya with a note. "Hold this, don't publish yet." She replied almost instantly. "What are you planning?" I typed, "A fire drill." That evening, Amelia called. I answered on the first ring. "Gray, we need to stop this." "Stop what?" "You know what. The photos, the documents, the harassment." "I haven't harassed anyone. I've observed." "You're trying to destroy me." "No, you're destroying yourself. I'm just watching." "Daniel's a mess. He's barely sleeping. He thinks you hate him." "I don't hate him. I hate what you've done to him. I saved his career. You bought his loyalty." Silence stretched between us. Then her voice, low and trembling, finally broke the stillness. "What do you want?" "I want you to drop out of the race." She laughed, the sound bitter and cold. "Not happening." "Then I'll do it for you." "You can't." "1 week, Amelia, your gala. I'd cancel it if I were you." I hung up. Then I sent a single text to Trevor, Leah, and Daniel. "Thursday, 8 p.m., Harbor View Pavilion. Be there." And to Amelia, "Bring a towel." The gala was sold out. 200 guests. Donors, local politicians, business owners. Amelia's keynote was scheduled for 8:15. I arrived at 7:30, wore my navy suit again. Still smelled like chalk dust, but I'd had it pressed. I looked respectable, invisible. I picked up my name tag at the registration desk. Graham Keene, guest. The volunteer smiled. "Enjoy the event." I walked into the hall. It looked the same. Glass walls, harbor lights, donor plaques. A DJ spun soft jazz. Waiters circulated with trays of wine and shrimp. I grabbed a club soda and found a corner. Amelia worked the room. She wore a red dress, campaign-perfect smile, shaking hands and laughing at jokes that probably weren't funny. Trevor stood beside her, playing the supportive brother-in-law. Daniel hovered near the bar, looking like he wanted to disappear into it. Leah spotted me first. She crossed the room, heels clicking. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "Supporting the candidate." "You bought a ticket?" "Campaign donations are public record. I contributed $50. Small donor. Grassroots." Her eyes narrowed. "You're planning something." I'm standing, drinking soda, very threatening. "Dad, where's your husband?" She glanced toward Trevor. "He's busy." "I bet he is." She leaned close. "Whatever you think you know, whatever you think you're doing, stop. You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" "You're becoming the bitter old man everyone warned us about." I smiled. "Funny. I don't feel bitter. I feel precise." She walked away. I checked my watch. 7:45. Maya Tran stood near the silent auction tables, pretending to browse. She caught my eye, gave a small nod. She'd agreed to attend as a witness, nothing more. If things went sideways, she'd document, but she wouldn't intervene. Father O'Rourke wasn't here. I hadn't invited him. This wasn't his kind of event. At 8 o'clock, the DJ faded. A spotlight hit the small stage at the front of the hall. Amelia climbed the steps, microphone in hand. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Applause. Tonight is about community, about building a future where everyone has a voice, where families are protected, where we take care of our elders. She looked directly at me, even when they make it difficult. Nervous laughter. I raised my glass. Salute. Her smile tightened. I want to thank my incredible team, my family, my husband Daniel, who supports me every day. Daniel lifted his wine glass. His hand shook. And special thanks to Trevor Pierce, treasurer of this campaign and a visionary developer who's transforming our waterfront. Trevor waved. Guests clapped. I checked my watch. 8:07. Now I know some of you have questions about my platform. A fire alarm chirped. Once. Twice. Then the sprinklers opened. Water erupted from the ceiling. Not a trickle. A deluge. Guests screamed. Wine glasses shattered. The DJ scrambled to cover his equipment. I stayed in my corner. Dry. The sprinklers were zoned. I checked the fire panel earlier. The corner I'd chosen was outside the test zone. The alarm blared. Strobe lights flashed. Someone yelled, "Everyone out!" Guests stampeded toward the exits. Chaos. Expensive chaos. I walked calmly to the AV booth. The technician was gone, fled with the crowd. I pulled a USB drive from my pocket and plugged it into the laptop controlling the LED wall behind the stage. The screen flickered. Then it displayed a single image. The mezzanine plans. Trevor's unapproved egress layout, side by side with the filed variance application. Below it, text. Question your donors. I unplugged the USB and pocketed it. Then I walked backstage. Amelia stood dripping, mascara running, shaking with rage. Trevor was on his phone. Daniel sat on a folding chair, head in his hands. Leah paced, heels squelching. I stepped into the light. Evening. Amelia spun. You. Me. You did this. No, the fire marshal did this. Required sprinkler test. I just made sure it happened during your speech. Public safety. You understand? Trevor stepped forward. That screen was your choice. You filed fraudulent plans. I just showed people. You broke into the AV system. I plugged in a USB. The door was unlocked. Venue tech walked away. Not my fault. Leah pointed at me. You're insane. I'm thorough. Daniel stood. Dad, please. Enough. Not yet. I pulled out my phone. Played his recorded confession. His voice filled the backstage area, tinny but clear. The nurse didn't just change his testimony. He lied. Amelia told him what to say. Amelia's face drained of color. That's inadmissible, she said. In court? Maybe. In public opinion? No. Trevor grabbed my arm. You're done. I twisted free. Don't touch me. He shoved me. I stepped back, planted, and threw a shoulder check. Not a punch. Just physics. Trevor stumbled, tripped over a cable, landed hard on his back. 2 security guards burst through the door. What's going on? Amelia pointed at me. He assaulted Trevor. The guards looked at Trevor on the floor, then at me, standing calmly. He shoved me first, I said. Self-defense. That's not... There are cameras, check them. The guards hesitated. I pulled an envelope from my jacket, handed it to Amelia. What is this? Your exit strategy. She opened it. Inside, Ruth's notarized statement on Trevor's filing fraud, Maya's research on the malpractice complaint, a printed copy of Leah's HR emails, bank statements showing Amelia's campaign debt, and a single-page document, a resignation letter, pre-written, addressed to her campaign committee. Sign it, I said. Withdraw from the race, cite personal reasons, issue a statement about regrettable handling of a past legal matter. Do it tonight. Or what? Or I send this, I held up my phone, to the hospital's Risk Management Council, and the State Bar, and Maya Tran. Maya appeared in the doorway. I'm here. Amelia looked at her. You're part of this? I'm a witness, Maya said. That's all. I turned to Trevor. You've got a choice, too. Sign a consent agreement with the city, fix the hotel, do it right, pay the fines, or they revoke your permits and blacklist you. You can't. Ruth already filed the paperwork. It's sitting on the fire marshal's desk, waiting for your signature. I turned to Leah. And you. Retract the HR complaints about me. Put it in writing. Send it to your company's labor council. Or I send your Google form analytics and those emails to the board. She stared at me. You're destroying us. No, I'm holding you accountable. Daniel stood, walked toward me. Dad? You're last, I said. He stopped. I pulled out another envelope, handed it to him. What is this? A resignation letter, from the private clinic. You're going back to the hospital full-time, salaried position, no investors, no leverage. I can't. You can. I already talked to the hospital. They'll take you back. Better terms, better hours. No Amelia. He looked at the letter, then at Amelia. Daniel, she said. Don't. She owns you, I said. This is how you get free. He looked at me. If I do this, then you're my son again. Tears welled in his eyes. But if you don't, I said, then you're hers. And I'm done. Silence. The guards shifted uncomfortably. Trevor groaned, sitting up. Leah's phone buzzed. She looked at it. Her face went pale. The board just emailed me. They want a meeting. Tomorrow. Better practice your apology, I said. Amelia crumpled the resignation letter. I'm not signing this. Then I'll do it for you. I walked past her, toward the stage. The sprinklers had stopped. Water dripped from the ceiling. The hall was empty except for a few stragglers and venue staff. I climbed onto the stage, grabbed the microphone, tapped it. The speakers crackled to life. Attention. For anyone still here, my name is Graham Keene, father of the groom from the wedding 3 weeks ago. You might remember me. I got slapped. A few people stopped, turned. Tonight's event was sponsored by a candidate who demands your keys, your trust, your vote. But she couldn't demand honesty. Amelia ran onto the stage. Stop. I held up my phone. This recording details witness tampering in a medical malpractice case. The lawyer involved is running for city council. The developer funding her campaign builds unsafe buildings. The family backing both of them pushed me out of my job for being inconvenient. You can't do this! I just did. I played the recording. Daniel's voice echoed through the hall. Amelia lunged for the microphone. I stepped aside. She slipped on the wet stage, went down hard. I didn't help her up. Daniel appeared. He pulled her to her feet. Then he turned to me and handed me his microphone. Do it, he said. I stared at him. Dad, do it. End this. I took the microphone, looked at Amelia. The complaint about the malpractice case? It didn't name Daniel. It named you. You tampered with a witness to protect a donor. You've been holding that over Daniel's head for 4 years, making him think he owed you. He doesn't. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I turned to the handful of guests, still watching. The Hospital Risk Council has the full file. So does the State Bar. So does the press. Amelia Boyd is withdrawing from the race tonight. Trevor Pierce is signing a consent agreement to fix code violations at his hotel. Leah Keene is retracting false HR complaints. And my son is resigning from a corrupt private clinic. I dropped the microphone. It hit the stage with a reverberating thud. Then I walked off. Daniel followed. Dad, wait. I stopped. He held out the resignation letter, signed. I'm sorry, he said, for all of it. I took the letter, folded it, put it in my pocket. You did the right thing. What now? Now you go home. Sleep. Tomorrow you call the hospital. You start over. And us? I looked at him. That depends on you. He nodded. I turned to leave. Amelia stood in the middle of the stage, dripping, destroyed. Trevor sat on the floor, phone to his ear, probably calling a lawyer. Leah stared at her phone, composing an email she didn't want to send. I walked through the hall, past the ruined decorations and overturned chairs, out into the October night. Maya caught up with me on the steps. "That was brutal," she said. "That was necessary. You got everything you wanted. I got what they owed me." She smiled. "Hell of a story. Can I use it?" "It's all public record now. Do what you want." She nodded, walked away. I stood alone on the pavilion steps, same place I'd stood 3 weeks ago after the wedding. The harbor stretched out in front of me, black water reflecting scattered lights. My phone buzzed. Ruth. Fire marshal accepted Trevor's consent agreement. Hotels on hold until fixes are complete. Eddie. Saw the news. You okay? Father O'Rourke. Praying for you, Gray, and for Daniel. I pocketed the phone, started walking. The wind was sharp, but I didn't feel it. I'd taught my son to tie his shoes, to ride a bike, to check load-bearing walls before knocking them down. Tonight, I taught him something else. How to stand up, even if it meant standing alone. The next morning, I woke to 63 missed calls. I ignored them, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table with my yellow legal pad, and started a list. Things to do. 1. Change locks. 2. Update will. 3. Call Union Pension Office. 4. Return library books. Normal things, small things, the kind of things you do when the war's over. My phone rang. Daniel, I answered. Dad. Yeah. Can I come over? When? Now. Okay. He arrived 20 minutes later. Looked like he hadn't slept. Eyes red, hair uncombed, wearing yesterday's shirt. I let him in, poured him coffee. He sat at the table. Hospital took me back. Full time. Salary plus benefits. Start Monday. Good. Amelia's moving out, getting her own place. Divorce? Probably. I sipped my coffee. You deserve better. I know. Do you? He looked at me. I think I'm starting to. We sat in silence. Then he said, Leah called me. She's furious. Says you ruined her reputation. I exposed her behavior. She ruined her own reputation. Trevor's bankrupt. Can't afford the hotel fixes. He's selling to a bigger developer. Not my problem. Dad, you destroyed them. They destroyed themselves. I just held up a mirror. He rubbed his face. I don't know how to feel. Feel however you want. Just feel it honestly. He nodded. Then he said, Mom would have hated this. I looked at him. Your mother spent her last months teaching me to fight for myself. She'd have understood. She'd have wanted us together. We are together, right now. He smiled, small but real. Can I ask you something? He said. Go ahead. When you grabbed me on the pier, when I almost fell, did you plan that? No, but you used it. I used the truth. You were drowning, and I pulled you out. Then I asked you to be honest. That's manipulation. That's parenting. He laughed. Bitter, but soft. We finished our coffee. He stood. I should go. Daniel. He stopped. You did the right thing, last night, on that stage, signing the letter. That took courage. It took desperation. Same thing sometimes. He nodded, walked to the door. Dad? Yeah. Can I come back, next week, just to talk? Door's always open. He left. I sat alone. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I turned on the radio. NPR. Something about climate policy. My phone buzzed. Maya. Stories live, front page online, print edition tomorrow. I opened the link. Headline, Local Council Candidate Withdraws Amid Ethics Questions. The article was clean. Factual. No editorializing. Just the documents, the timeline, the statements. Amelia's campaign had issued a press release. After careful consideration, I am withdrawing from the city council race to address personal matters and past professional conduct that requires my full attention. Trevor's firm had released a statement. Pierce Urban Ventures is committed to full compliance with all building codes and regulations. We are working with the city to address concerns at our seaport project. Leah's company had posted an internal memo. Following an internal review, we are recommitting to transparent and equitable HR practices, all sanitized, all covering their asses. But the truth was out. I closed the link, stood, walked to the window. The street below was ordinary. Cars, pedestrians, delivery trucks, life moving forward like nothing had happened. But something had happened. I'd drawn a line, and I'd held it. My phone rang again. Leah. I almost didn't answer. Then I did. Dad. Leah. Silence. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For pushing you out. For treating you like you were disposable. You learned that in a seminar? I learned it this morning when my CEO asked for my resignation. I blinked. They fired you? Effective immediately. Board reviewed the emails, said I violated company values. They offered severance if I go quietly. Are you going quietly? What choice do I have? You always have a choice. She laughed. Hollow. That's rich coming from you. What's that mean? You didn't give us choices. You gave us ultimatums. I gave you consequences. There's a difference. Is there? I leaned against the window frame. You tried to erase me. From my job. From my home. From my family. I just reminded you I existed. By destroying us. By defending myself. Silence again. Then she said, Trevor left me. I'm sorry. Are you? Yeah, I didn't want that. What did you want? Respect. She exhaled. I don't know what happens now. You figure it out, same as everyone else. Will you help me? With what? I don't know, anything. I'm 36 and unemployed and my husband's gone and I don't... Her voice cracked. I closed my eyes. Leah. Yeah? You can call me anytime, we'll talk. Why? After everything I did? Because you're my daughter. She cried, soft, muffled. Okay, she said finally. Okay. She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. Then I called Ruth. Gray, hell of a week. Yeah. What do you need? Nothing. Just wanted to say thank you. For what? For the statement, for being honest. I didn't do it for you. I did it for the city. Trevor's type, they cut corners, someone gets hurt. Can't have that. Still, thank you. You did good, Gray. Not clean, but good. I hung up, sat back down at the table, looked at my list, change locks, update will, call pension office, return library books. I picked up a pen, added one more item, call Daniel next week. Then I folded the list, put it in my pocket, and went to change the locks. 3 days later, I got a call from the hospital. Mr. Keene, this is Jennifer Park, Risk Management Counsel for City Hospital. I know who you are. We'd like to meet, regarding Dr. Amelia Boyd and the allegations detailed in the recent news coverage. I'm not a lawyer. We're aware, but you have documentation. We'd like to review it. When? Today, if possible. I met her at 2 p.m. in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the city. She was mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. I handed her a folder. Everything. The timeline. Daniel's recording. Ruth's statement. The bar complaint. She read in silence. Then she said, This is damning. It's accurate. Why didn't you come to us sooner? Because I wanted my son free of her first. She looked up. You use this as leverage. I used it as truth. And now? Now it's yours. Do what you want. She closed the folder. We'll open an internal review. If the allegations hold, we'll refer it to the state bar and possibly law enforcement. No prison. She frowned. Excuse me? I don't want her in prison. I want her career over. There's a difference. That's not your decision. It's my evidence. If you want it, you agree. Career consequences only. No criminal charges unless she breaks the law again. She stared at me. You're negotiating? I'm setting terms. She leaned back. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? A victim. I'm not a victim. I'm a father who got tired of losing. She smiled. Faint, but there. Fair enough. We'll handle this internally. No promises on criminal charges. That's up to the DA. But we'll push for professional consequences first. Good enough. I stood to leave. Mr. Keene? Yeah? Your son's a good surgeon. We're glad to have him back. Tell him that. He needs to hear it. I left. Outside, the November wind was colder. I pulled my jacket tight and walked toward the waterfront. The pier where I'd met Daniel was empty, just gulls and old pilings and water slapping wood. I stood at the edge, thought about my wife, about the message she'd recorded, about the promise she'd asked for. Protect him. I had, just not the way anyone expected. My phone buzzed. Trevor. We need to talk. I deleted it. Amelia. You won. Happy now? I blocked her. Leah. Coffee sometime? I replied. Next week, Tuesday. Daniel. Lunch today? I smiled. Where? We met at a diner near the hospital. Vinyl booths, greasy spoons, coffee that could strip paint. He looked better, rested, clean-shaven. How's the new schedule? I asked. Busy, but good. I'm doing real work again, not investor pitches. Good. We ordered. Burgers, fries, coffee. Amelia's gone, he said. Moved to New York. Her firm let her go. She's applying to corporate jobs out of state. And you? I'm here, starting over. That's all you can do. He poked at his fries. Do you think I'm weak? No. I let her control me. You were scared. Fear makes people stupid. You weren't scared. I was terrified. He looked up. Of what? Of losing you. He blinked. But you pushed me away. I pushed you to choose. There's a difference. What if I'd chosen her? Then I'd have lost, but you'd have known where I stood. He nodded. I'm sorry I didn't choose sooner. You chose when it mattered. We ate in silence. Then he said, Leah called me. She's a mess. I know. She wants to reconcile with both of us. What do you want? I want us to be a family again, but I don't know how. One meal at a time, one conversation. You don't rebuild trust overnight. How long will it take? As long as it takes. He smiled. Sad but real. We finished lunch. He paid. We walked outside. Dad? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me. I put a hand on his shoulder. Never. He hugged me. Tight, like when he was a kid. Then he let go and walked back to the hospital. I stood on the sidewalk, watching him go. My phone buzzed. Maya. Update. Hospital opened formal inquiry into Amelia. State bars reviewing the complaint. Trevor's hotel sold. New developers starting from scratch. I pocketed the phone. Walked home. The apartment was still too quiet. But it was mine. I made coffee. Sat at the table. Pulled out my yellow legal pad. Crossed off. Change locks. Update will. Call pension office. Added. Buy groceries. Fix kitchen cabinet. Call Leah on Tuesday. Normal things. Small things. The kind of things you do when you've won. Not perfectly. Not cleanly. But won. I looked out the window at the street below. Cars, people, life moving forward. I'd taught my kids to tie their shoes, to check their work, to stand up when it mattered. Some lessons took longer than others, but they'd learned, and so had I. I'd learned that love isn't surrender, that family isn't obligation, that respect is earned, not inherited. I'd learned that revenge isn't always fire. Sometimes it's paper, sometimes it's patience, sometimes it's standing in a room full of people who underestimated you and proving them wrong, not with fists, with facts. I stood, walked to the window, looked out at my city. Somewhere, Amelia was packing boxes, Trevor was signing bankruptcy papers, Leah was staring at her severance agreement, and Daniel was saving lives. I'd balanced the ledger. The rest was up to them. I turned away from the window, finished my coffee, and got back to living. No epilogue, no afterwards. Just a man in his apartment, alone but undefeated, with a list of small things to do and all the time in the world to do them. I raised my cup to the empty room. To load-bearing walls, I said. Then I got to work.